Okay, so we're just sort of picking up and filling in with some of the things that I didn't finalize last time. So the Equal Pay Act amended the Fair Labor Standards Act, and this is talking about gender equity and wages. Okay, it's unlawful to discriminate in pay between genders. So that problem's been solved in our culture, right?
Legally.
But yeah, legally solved, but not really solved at all. I think the last number I saw, anybody have a feel for what it is? What women make on the whole in any given profession?
The median wage gap is like 70 cents on the dollar.
It's a little higher than that now. It used to be that low. I think the most recent I saw was around 82 cents on the dollar. It's steadily been climbing upwards, but the point isn't like how close is it getting? It should just be the same. I know they did a study here at the university, and on the whole, PhD, tenure track professors that are women make about 86% of their male counterparts. And there's lots of things that that's attributable to, right? Women aren't really equally represented in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, because they're more highly compensated. Women on the whole will have a tendency to take a break sometime in their professional career for child rearing, and that puts them behind the curve. Women statistically are overrepresented in things like social work and young childhood education, which are lower compensated. So, I mean, there's not just one thing. There's a ton of variables that go into it, but it's not a solved issue by any stretch. Okay, FLSA also talks about child labor, and if you're 14 or 15 years old, you're very, very limited to the kinds of jobs you can have. Retail, food and gas, gas service. 16 or 17, you can work an unlimited number of hours, but you can't be around hazardous materials or heavy equipment or anything like that. Agricultural occupations, you can see the effect of our very powerful agricultural lobby in this country, where kids as early as 10 years old are allowed to work in the fields between the 1st of June and the 15th of October. So obviously these are migrant kids. And as an employer, obviously you always need to have a certificate of age on file, otherwise there can be very stringent penalties. Okay, so what happens if you feel like your employer owes you money for whatever, overtime, back pay, severance pay, just a paycheck, and they're not paying you? There's civil and criminal penalties, and I can go through and read this all to you, but how long do you have to keep payroll records on file as an employer? 7 years. That's same with your income taxes. Although if there's anything around like buying and selling real estate or buying and selling stocks, you should really keep those records forever. Okay, what the FLSA does not cover, we've just been through this whole laundry list of things that it does cover. What doesn't it cover? It does not say that you've got to get paid extra for weekends or holidays. It does not say that you have to be given holidays or vacations. Your employer might just say, great, I'm glad it's Christmas, but they're not mandated to pay you for Christmas. Other people say that all the time. Oh, this sucks. I only get 5 or 6 days a year, and it's like those are actually that's a benefit. I mean,
You don't have to pay you, it's not that.
no, like say I'm shutting down my shop. I don't operate my coffee shop on Christmas, but I don't have to pay you.
Right.
I'm just not open that day. You don't come to work, and I don't come to work, and see you the day after. So they don't have to do any of these things. They don't have to give you sick leave. They don't have to give you vacation time. I mean, there's a whole slew of rules if they do give them to you and now you're leaving employment, right? It's called PTO, paid time off. And depending upon which of these we're talking about, they've got to compensate you for that accrued PTO, but they don't have to ever give it to you in the first place. Okay, this is fairly straightforward, although not really. So obviously, what's my work time? They've got to pay me based upon my work time. And the key word here is principal activity. So I'm a cook, let's say a breakfast cook at Perkins, and I got to get there at 5 to turn on my grill to heat up before the first customers come at 5:30. They have to pay me? I'm not actually working, all I gotta do is go switch off, turn on the grill. It is, if prep at my workstation, that's considered a principal activity. How about if I'm a home health nurse and I travel between clients' homes? They got to pay me? Sure, principal part of my workday. What about leaving my home and going to the first client? Nope, that's commuting. Or leaving my last patient and then coming home. Nope, that's commuting, right? But anything in between, they have to. What about idle time? I work on a bottling line and they have to come in and recalibrate the equipment. And I'm sitting there. Sure, they got it.
Your time is valuable too.
If they give me, and again, they don't have to give me rest time, but if they give me breaks of less than 20 minutes, they cannot make you clock out. And that's a misconception. I've seen that before. Oh, you've got to clock up. Good question. I don't know the answer to that. Or do you? Is there something in your mind that if you're under 16, okay?
If you're under 16, you have to take a 20-minute break every 4 hours. I'm not mistaken, 2 or 4 hours.
As an older person, that seems sort of funny to me. Like, really, one that takes the break is me. 16-year-olds have endless energy. What do they need to sit down for? Anyway, thank you for that. So meal periods, they don't have to pay you for mealtime unless you can't leave your workstation. So like I'm a receptionist and they're like, okay, well, you don't need to be like working, but you can't really leave here because you're my front desk person. Well, if I'm not being paid, I should be able to go run errands or walk my dog or take a run or whatever I want to do on my lunch break. Okay, this is a big thing here, work at home. So it's not as big as it was, but about 10 years ago, it was a ginormous industry where they would feed you stuff in your home, like stuffing envelopes for marketing, or assembling things, or packaging things, or doing a final quality assurance. Anything you do at home is a principal activity. And this is kind of key here. So say, let me come up with an example. Say like one of our administrative assistant for our department is a non-exempt employee. And she takes home, I don't know, I'm not coming up with a good example. She takes home class scheduling to work on for the summer. Even if our department chair didn't ask her to do it, she has to be paid for it. I can tell you she would be probably heartily reprimanded because we don't really pay overtime to our administrative assistants, right? It's not in the budget, so she wouldn't do it again. But you have to be paid for any work you do at home. It's gotten really gray because, as most of you know, I don't know, how many of you have a job that you like check your email at home or respond to people at home? You do, yeah, you do, Laura? Right, so that's a pretty gray area. I can tell you in any given night, I might respond sporadically to 15 to 20 students. Am I logging that time? I'm an exempt employee, but if I was non-exempt, I could be like, oh, that took 28 seconds. So it's really a gray area. Sleep time is principal. If you don't have to be on work less than 24 hours, so I go to the youth homes and I'm a night guard, but a night person that just sleeps there. So if the kids need you in the middle of the night or there's some sort of emergency, that's a principal activity. I've got to be paid for it. Training sessions. Hey, show up on Saturday, Lisa. We're learning a new piece of software. You've got to be here. They've got to pay me. And waiting for a doctor's appointment. Obviously, this was a very specific lawsuit. Like I'm waiting for a urinalysis to be a truck driver. They've got to pay me for the waiting in line and peeing in the cup, I guess.
So I used to assemble some jewelry and people who own the jewelry company would ship me like a box of earring bags and then stones.
Yep.
And then maybe per piece. Is that
Yep.
minimum per piece?
We're going to actually do, so the question is for anybody that's listening, she was shipped components of jewelry and then she assembled them at home and was paid per piece. That's called piece rate and that's totally legal. but you've got to make sure you're getting minimum wage. And we'll do some of the piece rates. Good question. Okay, non-compensable, if you're late, if you're sick, that's non-compensable. You don't have to be paid for it. The last one must be paid for fractional parts of an hour. Some companies, you can go, I think, as small of an increment as 15 minutes. Or, I'm sorry, as large of an increment as 15 minutes. So a lot of companies do 15 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes, or 6 minutes are the increments that they clock in and out. Okay, and there's lots of different ways, obviously, to keep time. The old-fashioned, time cards are pretty antiquated. Most are now some sort of swipe your card or check in on a computer. Cardless and badgeless. There's even, you can check in from home. At the bottom here, biometrics, right, where you do eye scans or fingerprint scans. I mean, it's just all, more new age, web-based, etc. Okay.
Different for like people, firefighters who work 24 hours a day and need a day off?
They are, as far as what, timekeeping?
Yeah, as far as paid timekeeping, if they're exempt, or does that count as 24 on, 24 off type situation?
Oh, but yeah, they've got to be paid as part of their principal activity is being on site in case of a fire, right?
Even during sleeping or cooking?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so we've been through this. Probably get out your calculators and make sure you have a pencil, not a pen. Okay, the first thing I want to make sure that everyone's aware of, we've talked about this, but just to revisit it. Can anybody tell me the difference between an overtime premium and an overtime rate?
Overtime premium is in like 0.5, and then the higher rate is 1.2.
All right. If I make $10 an hour, what's my overtime rate? Yeah. That's my OT rate, right? What's my OT premium? Right? In other words, what did they tack on to my base rate? $5. That's my premium. My rate is the full amount. Yeah? Okay, let's take a look. I think we left off here, which was I have a bunch of different jobs for the same company, or just two. I'm a veterinary technician, but I also clean the cages. So as a vet tech, they pay me $18 an hour. To clean the cages, they pay me $10 an hour. And in one given week, I go into overtime. Okay. Maddie, what's one of the ways they can compensate me in that situation for my overtime hours? What's one of the calculations? Okay, based on what rate though? The $18 an hour or the $10 an hour? There's three choices. Okay, go ahead.
18.
One choice is to give me a premium based on the highest rate. Okay. Tyler, what's another choice? I do a bunch of hours at $18 an hour and a few hours at $10 an hour, and I went into overtime. One way they can handle the overtime is to tack on the 0.5 premium at the highest rate. What's another choice? The average, the weighted average. And I don't mean just take 18 and 10 and divide by 2. Remember we looked at that? I worked 35 hours at $18 an hour and only 9 hours at $10 an hour. Obviously the weighted average is going to be much closer to 18 than it is 10, right? And the third method is what were you doing when you went into the overtime? Were you cleaning the cages or were you prepping for surgery? Right? And I'm not going to walk through all this because we did this in class. I know a couple of you missed the latter part of class on Friday. You need to work through this on your own. Okay, and that's why these slides are out there. Okay, this is what we're going to spend the bulk of time working on today. So what the situation here is I have somebody that's on salary. Can I put non-exempt people on salary? Sure, but I have to make sure that I pay them overtime because they're non-exempt from the overtime provisions of the FLSA, right? I can put you on salary, that's not the problem. The problem is I can't then just pretend that I can work you as much as I want. So here's the steps that we're going to go through to calculate overtime for salaried people that are non-exempt. And I think I alluded to this on Friday, but let me just say it again. I've got a little bit of a difference of opinion in how they go through the steps. So our number 2 isn't going to be to calculate the weekly gross, it's going to be to calculate the regular gross. Well, what's the difference? If I'm semi-monthly, or monthly, or bi-weekly, I don't really see the need to go through and get a weekly gross. So we're going to do these steps. First, we're going to annualize the salary. What does that mean, actually? I quote you a salary of $1,500 on a bi-weekly basis. How do I annualize your salary? $1,500 on a bi-weekly basis. I got to multiply it by 26. Yeah. Quote you a check or quote you a salary of $2,200 a month. How am I going to annualize it? Multiply by 12, right? So I'm going to annualize it. I'm going to divide by the number of paychecks in the how many periods I'm paid over. Calculate hourly pay. How many hours are there? What would be the math to figure out the number of hours in a full-time work year? Sure. Times what? 52 weeks in the year, 40 weeks a year, or 40 hours a week. An average work year, I'm sorry, not average, a full-time work year based on this premise is 2,080 hours. That certainly doesn't describe everybody. I'm contracted for 1,390 hours a year. So this, that's not everybody, but that's a lot of people. Okay, so let's start here. And then I'm going to walk through this one, then I'm going to have you crunch the numbers out yourself. Regular gross. So this guy, Farron, is a non-exempt employee. He's paid $1,500 a month, and his paycheck's weekly. So they quote him a salary of $1,500 a month. He's paid weekly, and in 1 week he has 43 hours. And we want to figure out what his gross paycheck is. So can you just write down kind of these facts? $1,500 a month. Then I'm going to go up to the prior slide and we're going to walk through it on our paper. Paid weekly, 43 hours. $1,500 a month, paid weekly, 43 hours. And so what I want you to do is actually write down all these calculations. So number 1, please write out the algebraic formula to annualize the salary. So what times what? Yeah, so how much did we make a year? 18,000. The second step says calculate regular gross. But in this example, he actually is paid what? Weekly. So what am I going to divide the annual salary by? 52. So please actually write the formula out. Annual salary divided by how many times he's paid in a year, and get me his regular gross paycheck. It just happens to be weekly in this example. How much does he make a week? 346. Step number 3 says get me hourly wage. Now, I could just stop for a second. This is where I'm a little different from the book. We could easily, because he's paid weekly, just divide by 40, right? But what would you divide by if we were working with a semi-monthly paycheck? How about monthly? See what I'm saying? So the way I'm going to show you is the exact same 5 steps for all pay types. So I want you to go back to the annual salary and divide by the number of hours in the work year to get his hourly wage. And actually do the math. So annual gross divided by the number of hours in this guy's work year. Which will get you to the exact same answer. It's just a different way of doing it. How much is he making an hour? $8.65. What did we decide minimum wage was in Montana? 8.15. I should verify that. Okay, so if he's in Montana, he's barely over minimum wage, huh? Next one. What's his overtime rate? So you take his regular rate times 1.5. And we should have his minimum, or I'm sorry, his overtime rate. Yeah. And then how many hours did he make that overtime rate for? 3. So his paycheck is his regular gross from number 2, plus however many hours he worked at his overtime rate. And you should actually write the formula out. And I just want to point out, I took you to the 18,000 and had you divide by 5. 2,080 hours. They had to do that in 2 steps. Same exact answer. I'm just giving you a methodology that will work for any pay type. Let me give you another, did everyone get to the 38509? All right, let me give you another data set. Write this down, please. Okay, I quote my employee a salary of $2,000 a month. I quote her a salary of $2,000 a month. I pay her, I cut my payroll semi-monthly. So hey, come work for me as a nail tech in my beauty salon. I'll pay you $2,000 a month. I cut paychecks semi-monthly, and in one pay period, she worked 4 hours of overtime. Write down 5 formulas, not on your calculator, literally writing them down. That's part of the pedagogy. And get to her gross. She made $2,000. I quoted her salary $2,000 a month. I cut payroll semi-monthly, and in one semi-monthly pay period, she worked 4 hours of OT. Annualize the salary. You just follow these 5 steps. And again, you're not calculating weekly gross. She's not paid weekly. You're calculating her regular gross paycheck. That she's paid how many times a year? 24. Yeah, good job. Go ahead. So for number 2, you take whatever you got for the annual salary and then divide by how many times he or she was paid a week, or in a year. Go ahead.
How many hours of overtime?
What did they say? 4 hours of OT. Again, in this example, I don't have both of these bullets. I go from 24,000 divided by 2,080 straight to the 11.54 an hour. Michaela, do you have a question?
Yeah,
Yeah, where did you have confusion?
the 12 for the first one.
So the figure annualize it because I quoted her salary on a monthly basis.
So wouldn't that be 24 instead of 12?
I quoted her a monthly salary.
Oh.
I cut checks on a semi-monthly basis. And that's where this confusion right is.
So the last step is what I got, $1,000.
So when you pay her,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, she gets her regular gross paycheck,
Yeah.
plus however many hours she worked at her overtime rate. And here's her overtime rate, and I had told you she worked 4 hours of OT.
We're just adding it all together. $1,000.
This is sort of a quick aside, but it's worth saying. We have active shooter instructions here. Have I talked about this to you guys? So what would happen if there was an active shooter in this building, we were in this room? This is ever closest to the doors, we're going to lock the doors.
put your head between your legs and shake your head.
If we hear something coming from that direction, we've got an emergency exit right here up this door. That is where you head. If you hear something coming from here, the best place to be that you can't see is back in this corner. I hate that I even have to say this, but let's be honest. Nobody wants to be reading this. Where am I going? Right? That's where you're going. You know, door's locked. Well, obviously if we're exiting, they're just freaking gone. But if we're staying in here, the doors are locked and you're back in that corner. There is no other protector in here.
What's that over to?
Nobody really knows. It's supposedly some electronics room or engineering room. Okay, let's try this one. One more. Write this down, please. Now my person is quoted a salary of $2,200 a month. And I cut paychecks on a bi-weekly basis. And in one bi-weekly pay period, she works 11 and a half hours of overtime. Quoted you a salary, $2,200 a month. I cut checks bi-weekly, and in one pay period, you work 11 and a half hours of overtime. What's your gross paycheck? Yeah. So 2,200 times 12, how much does she make a year? 26.4. And that's very
So bi-weekly is multiplied by 26, right?
One more time.
The bi-weekly.
26 times a year if you're bi-weekly. Go ahead.
I multiplied the first, the 2,200 by 26.
Here's your prompt. I quoted you as monthly salary.
That's where it's more than only 12.
Yeah.
And then you stick with the 52. From that,
I take the 2,200 times 12 to get my annual salary.
okay.
And then I figure out my regular gross paycheck by dividing by the number of pay periods in the year. How many times a year am I paid? No, 5 weekly. 26.
So that's,
That's my regular gross paycheck that I get every time. Then I've got to go back to the annual salary and divide by 2,080 hours to get my hourly rate. Right? And again, I don't go through, I combine bullets 3 and 4. We just go up to the annual salary and divide by 2,080. I see no reason why we need her weekly rate. She's not paid on a weekly basis. It all comes out to the exact same numbers. It's just my method where you combine them works for every pay type.
yeah, that part, but then we have to bring that, bi-weekly pay period down. to
Yeah, that one.
That's where I'm missing that number.
It's right there.
Yeah. But
That's what I get every pay period regardless, right? So at the end of the day, when I'm calculating your paycheck, that's the very first part of the equation. You
Yeah.
always get that.
Divide that by 2 to get the weekly rate.
Yeah, but we don't need the weekly rate. That's what I'm saying.
That's where I messed up.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
No, what?
Jill, please. Oh, no, really.
So on that one, it says 11 and a half, was that not, I thought we were using 4 and a half.
11 and a half hours of overtime. Right.
That's what.
She worked 11.5 hours of overtime. If you misunderstood me, big deal. Who cares, as long as you understand the steps.
So you say we don't need the weekly rate, but
No.
on those steps, how else would you get the regular hourly?
I took 26,000, my third step is you go to the annual salary and divide by 2,080 hours, which is 52 times 40. That is the 2,080 hours. We don't need the weekly rate for anything.
So you would get 26,400 divided by.
2,080 is 1,269.
And that just kind of skips over. Oh, that's nice. I'm gonna do that one too.
Okay, next concept. What happens if I work less than a 40-hour work week? Forget reading the facts, just look at me for a second. What happens if I work less than a 40-hour work week, but I'm quoted a salary?
You get that salary.
They've got to give me the salary, right? But then I really go into overtime once I work over 35 hours a week, right? So between 35 and 40 hours, they're just going to give me my regular hourly wage for extra comp. Or, not extra, for overtime. But then once I hit 40 hours a week, regardless, they've got to do what? Time and a half. Okay, so stick with me. What's going to change in this equation if I work a 35-hour work week? The number of hours in a full-time year. Okay. I'm going to prompt you this. Write this down. I'm quoted a salary of $1,600 a month. I'm quoted a salary of $1,600 a month for a 35-hour work week. I cut paychecks semi-monthly. In one pay period, one semi-monthly pay period, I worked 16 hours of overtime. So remind me again what overtime is for me, over how many hours? Oh, no, because my salary's for what? 35 hours a week. So if I have 16 hours of overtime, some of them are between 35 and 40 hours a week, and some of them are over 40, aren't they? So of my 16 hours of overtime, 10 of them are between 35 and 40. 6 of them are over 40 hours a week. I had 16 hours in total of overtime, because overtime for me kicks in at 35. But it's 2 weeks, semi-monthly. So really the steps are the same. Let's walk through it together. First off, annualize your salary. Step one, annualize her salary.
1,600.
What did it just say? 16? Yeah. Annualize her salary.
19,200. Oh, no, that's
1,600 times 12. 19,200. Step one. Step two, calculate her regular semi-monthly gross paycheck. What is it? 19,200 divided by 24 pay periods. Step three, calculate her hourly wage. You go back to her annual salary, but this time do you divide by 2,080? No, because her regular work week is what?
35.
Yeah.
So it'd be 18.
35 times 52. Calculate her regular hourly wage. How much does she make an hour? $10.55 an hour. Calculate her time and a half. And then put it together. She has three things, doesn't she? Her regular paycheck, that she gets always, plus how many hours does she get at her regular rate, additional? 10, plus another 6 hours at what?
15.
Time and a half. She gets her regular wage for 35 hours. She gets 10 hours at her just her regular rate, 1.5, 10.55 times 1.5.
And then that's not 16.
Right, because the 16 hours, she's salaried for 35 hours, so anything between 35 and 40, I'm going to pay her her regular hourly additional.
That would only be 5 hours.
And then 40, well, but it's a semi-monthly period, so it's for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And then anything over 40, what does she have to get? Full time and a half. So I've got to tell you how to split that 16 hours up. And I did. 10 of them are between 35 and 40 hours, the other 6 are over. Okay, here's what I would do if I was you. I would come back and look at these slides. And if you need to rework them, rework them.
$1,800.
It's up here. Okay, so let me shut this off.